Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We're going to skip our usual agenda and just jump right into a fascinating technological mystery. Okay, I want you to picture a magnificent, heavily fortified castle. You know, high stone walls, deep moats, guards at every single gate. This is exactly how Europe has been building its modern digital infrastructure to protect its most sensitive data. But what if those impenetrable walls had a secret tunnel built right into the foundation? A tunnel the castle's architects didn't design and, worse, can't completely seal off? Well, that is the heart of the silicon sovereignty paradox. Okay, let's dive into this. 2 billion euros. That's a 2 with 9 zeros. That is the staggering amount of money Europe is currently pouring into sovereign cloud initiatives. Programs like the EU's IPCEI CIS are actively funding these massive infrastructure developments. And why? Because European policymakers desperately want to reduce their exposure to foreign, particularly United States, legal reach. They want their data housed in European clouds, subject exclusively to European laws and fully isolated from outside interference. It's a massive, massive investment in legal and digital independence. But this brings us to a rather eerie question. Have you ever powered off your laptop, placed it securely in your bag, left it for a few weeks, and then come back to find the battery completely dead? It's incredibly frustrating, right? Well, that draining battery isn't just some weird quirk of modern technology. It's a clue to an invisible presence inside your machine, a presence that operates constantly in the background, drawing power even when everything appears completely shut down.
Section 1. The Quest for Sovereign Clouds. SecNumCloud and the Legal Walls.
So, to understand this invisible threat, we first need to look at how Europe is trying to build those castle walls. France's National Cybersecurity Agency, ANSSI, developed SecNumCloud as Europe's most rigorous attempt to build a legally immune cloud certification. Just look at these requirements. It boasts nearly 1,200 technical rules governing everything from architecture and access controls to encryption. It promises operators immunity from extraterritorial laws. But here is the massive blind spot. It focuses almost entirely on organizational security, data access, and cloud software. It completely misses the underlying hardware layer. And the reality is, most of these highly certified data centers still rely heavily on processors supplied by American chipmakers.
Section 2. The computer inside your computer. Intel ME and AMD PSP. Let's rapidly zoom in from that massive cloud infrastructure all the way down to the microscopic silicon layer. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what's sitting inside these American-designed processors. Specifically, the Intel Converged Security and Management Engine, or CSME, and the AMD Platform Security Processor, or PSP. They use a concept known as ring -3. You see, in computer architecture, privilege rings dictate who has access to what. Your applications run in outer rings, your operating system runs in an inner ring. But these management engines operate at ring -3. This is a hardware privilege level running below the operating system and even below the hypervisor. It is entirely outside the view of the host system. Your operating system simply doesn't even know it's there.
And the capabilities of this ring -3 environment are, honestly, almost godlike. According to Professor John Goodacre, a leading computer architecture expert, this engine has its own dedicated memory, its own internal clock, and its own completely separate network stack. Crucially, it can share the host machine's MAC and IP addresses. Oh, and remember that dead battery hook from earlier? This engine operates continuously in low-power states even when the machine is technically off, drawing a steady 100 to 200 milliwatts. That continuous background operation is exactly what drains your 55-watt-hour battery while your laptop sits quietly in your back.
Section 3. Why security software is blind, bypassing the host completely.
This invisible, always-on computer brings us to a pretty terrifying realization. Traditional enterprise security is fundamentally blind to it. Take the documented Platinum nation-state attack as a perfect example of this vulnerability. Attackers didn't even use a complex exploit. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't an exploit at all. It was a built-in feature. They targeted a device running Intel's active management technology. They obtained credentials, sometimes literally just the factory default admin with no password. Then, they used serial over LAN to steal data. Because this traffic routes entirely through the management engine and the network interface card's sideband path, it's delivered before the host TCP/IP stack ever even runs. The host firewall and endpoint detection systems literally never saw a single packet of stolen data. None of it.
Because of this architecture, Professor Goodacre's conclusion in a recent risk assessment is absolutely blunt and sobering. He notes that connecting a device with an untouched management engine to corporate resources compromises the host security stack in its entirety. It completely defeats BitLocker full disk encryption, FIDO2 sign-ins, endpoint detection, host firewalls, and corporate VPNs. The security software is simply bypassed completely. No way around it.
Section 4. RISIA and the Silicon Backdoor. The legal escalation.
Let's move to and see how this builds, connecting this microsilicon threat back to the geopolitics driving Europe's push for digital sovereignty. If we trace the timeline, back in 2013, the Snowden disclosures revealed massive U.S. surveillance capabilities, which actually prompted France to draft its first SecNumCloud framework. Then in 2018, the U.S. passed the Cloud Act, allowing U.S. authorities to compel data held by American companies overseas. Europe responded by strengthening its cloud walls. But then, in 2024, the U.S. passed RISA, an act that literally changed the battlefield entirely.
RISA expanded the legal definition of an electronic communications service provider. It now goes way beyond cloud operators and directly scopes in hardware manufacturers. This means companies like Intel and AMD can legally be compelled through secret orders to cooperate with U.S. intelligence access. So even if a European cloud provider is fully isolated from American data demands on paper, the American processor sitting physically inside their server can still be legally compelled to share information through that invisible management engine backdoor.
Section 5. Castle walls and network isolation, the great security debate. Naturally, this has sparked a massive debate on how you defend against a threat when you don't even control the hardware. On one side, we have security researcher Professor Aurélien Francelon. He argues that operational controls act as those castle walls. Through strict network isolation, monitoring, administration gateways, and network segmentation, the hardware backdoor becomes practically unreachable except to the absolute most advanced top-tier nation-state attackers. But on the other side, Professor Goodacre argues that this is an irreducible cost. Because the management engine traffic looks perfectly identical to legitimate host traffic to a perimeter firewall, the supply chain residual threat permanently exists in the hardware, meaning the underlying flaw is never truly fixed.
To put Goodacre's concerns into perspective, let's look at some real-world telemetry from Eclipsium regarding production enterprise environments. A massive 72% of observed devices remained vulnerable to a specific Intel management engine flaw years after public disclosure. 72%. This clearly highlights how incredibly persistent these unpatched firmware vulnerabilities are in live corporate environments, providing a really rich attack surface that just bypasses those castle walls.
Section 6. The Silicon Sovereignty Paradox, the gap nobody names.
As we look at the overarching impact, there's a huge gap between political rhetoric and technical reality. Policymakers often prioritize legal compliance because, frankly, it's a lot easier to legislate than to build a chip factory. And this brilliantly illustrates one of the biggest misconceptions in policy discussions right now, the reliance on side chips like Google's OpenTitan. Some argue this solves the whole problem. But as Francelon points out, OpenTitan is just an external secure element for protecting keys. It's a small chip on the side. It does not replace the main processor. Your Linux OS and applications don't run on it. Meanwhile, the default embedded trusted platform module still lives right inside the vulnerable management engine. OpenTitan doesn't magically fix the core processor level vulnerability.
The reality of this situation is perhaps best summarized by Vincent Struble, the director of ANSI, the very agency that created the SecNumCloud framework we talked about earlier. He stated, "If Europe were ever cut off from American or Chinese technology, the result would be a global problem of security degradation." He emphasizes that current sovereignty frameworks are purely cybersecurity tools. They are not industrial policy tools. They cannot miraculously replace global foreign hardware supply chains simply because developing competitive alternatives like RISC-V will literally take decades.
Which brings us to the ultimate question you should take away from this explainer today. As European clouds rely heavily on operational security to block out legal and digital threats, the physical processors running those clouds remain completely under foreign jurisdiction, equipped with invisible, godlike management engines. So I leave you to ponder this. Can digital sovereignty truly exist on non-sovereign silicon? Thank you so much for learning with me today. And hey, keep questioning the technology beneath your technology.